I'm Kristen.
And I'm Maddie.
We're sisters and heavy readers.
Join us every single week to talk stories, interview authors, and collab with fellow book nerds.
Welcome to the Chris and Mad Show. Welcome back to the show, you guys. Today's episode is going to be so epic because we are talking about one of the biggest fantasy epics of all time, which is The Wheel of Time. Now, The Wheel of Time has over 90 million copies sold, which just blows my mind. This is a top tier fantasy series, and it was nominated for the Hugo Award. What's insane, which me and Maddie found out through some Googling, is that its popularity has spawned comic book adaptations, a collectible card game,
Wow.
a video game, a role-playing game,
Yep.
and a soundtrack album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it also has a television adaptation, which we will talk about a little bit today. And it has aired 3 seasons on Amazon Prime. So I am so excited to talk to Maddie about who this series is good for, what part of the series are amazing, what parts suck, and the people who should just stay away. Like I said, I have not read The Wheel of Time. Maddie has read all of it. So this should be a very good spoiler-free conversation for anybody who has interest or love for The Wheel of Time.
Yeah, hopefully if you're getting ready to pick it up, this is super helpful to you because I would have loved to check something like this out before I dove in. But also, if you're already a fan of the series, hopefully this is just a fun way to interact and engage with the fandom, because I think that's one of the best parts of having read the series, is being able to now engage with all of the content about it. So...
Well, and I don't know if everybody even knows this about The Wheel of Time. So bare bone basics, guys. This is a 14-book series with a prequel.
With a prequel, yeah. So 15 altogether.
Bizarro. So it's large and in charge. And Maddie talks about it in sections. So why don't you just give us the breakdown of how you can read it and what to expect in these different eras of the world?
Yeah, I definitely think that it is easiest to bite off a big series like this in sections that are, I don't want to say they're self-contained or complete, but at least you get to a good stopping point within certain sections. So I like to use the project management little formula here that starts with forming. So sorry. Yes, starts with forming, and then you have storming, and then you have norming, and then you have performing. And there's this graph that just shows that as you move through a process with something, you have these highs and lows, and you kind of have to move through all of these phases before you're really cooking. And I think that is exactly how the Wheel of Time works. So you start out with the forming phase. In the forming phase, you are, like with any series or any book, you're learning your characters, you're learning the world, you're kind of developing what is the tone and the mood of this series that I'm reading. So in The Wheel of Time, that's going to be book 1, The Eye of the World, book 2, The Great Hunt, book 3, The Dragon Reborn, and that will give you a sense of who are these characters going to be for the epic story that we're telling? Why are we reading about them now? And that's what this is going to give you. So this is just the setup of here's these 5 characters from the 2 rivers, which is an area on the map. And here's these other 2 characters from another area on the map who are going to discover them. And then the story is going to explode. But this is still the forming phase. In these 3 books, it's going to be questy. Sometimes people refer to this as the Lord of the Rings section of the book, because it's they're on a quest from where they come from to a capital area. Mm-hmm. And, there's dangers and there's creatures. Right. And there's just stumbling blocks along the way of their quest. That feels very Lord of the Rings.
Wait, but it takes an entire trilogy just to get the vibes? We're catching vibes for 3 books?
Good question. No, you're not just catching vibes. I would say it's just you're not yet in the meta plot yet in those first 3 books.
So it's way more honed in.
Yes.
Smaller scale.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's the prophecy is introduced, and why it pertains to your main characters in these first 3 books. And the like enemy or contentious factions are brought in, and they do engage with them. Like there is a climactic moment at the end of Eye of the World. There's a climactic moment at the end of The Great Hunt, and there's a climactic moment at the end of The Dragon Reborn. So each of those books kind of has like a normal story structure where it's like things happen, dangers ensue, shit hits the fan, and then there's a climax. So they're like more traditional books, and I would say these are kind of the easiest to get into.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Is like, is it a slog in the get?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay,
No.
so these are actually very enjoyable, maybe higher rated for you than some of the other books in the series.
Yes. I still think they have their issues, but I think that those books are fairly easy to get into, and the world is still fairly contained at that point, and you're living within the bounds and the rules of the world as it has been through this whole age. Okay, then you're going to get into the storming phase. The storming phase is where things go awry.
Love that.
Shit breaks down, things get rearranged. Like this is where we're kind of breaking down to rebuild. And so that those books will be book 4, The Shadow Rising, book 5, The Fires of Heaven, book 6, Lord of Chaos, and a little bit book 7, Crown of Swords.
Okay.
So in these books, this is very broad strokes here, guys. But in those books, basically all of these structures that we've come to know, that's the magic system, that's the powers that be, that's the way that the world has always worked, is starting to really break down. We're starting to see like we've come to the end of something. The Tower of Aes Sedai is no longer what we thought, or it's not operating the way it was. There's this whole new faction that have come from another continent. They're actually introduced in book 2, but now they're like really prevalently like shaking shit up on our continent. The homeland, the place that our 5 main characters originate from, the 2 rivers, is being sieged. It's under attack. So there's just like a lot, and then there's all the other factions in the world. Like we have the Aiel and we've got the Borderlands. So there's all of these groups that are coming into play, and the way they've always worked are like coming into chaos for some reason, and it impacts all of our main characters who are now not all together in a group. They're like separated to these different areas of the map doing different things.
So do you get lots of different point of views, and
Yes.
you're just jumping from area to area?
Yes.
So in one book, you might not get like a ton of forward motion for each individual character.
Correct, because you do bounce around a lot. So that's, again, one of the reasons that I would read books in chunks. Like, I'm not saying you should just read all 14 books, but I do think you should kind of read books 1, 2, and 3 kind of together. And I think you should read 4 through 7 kind of together so that you hold on to the overall narrative.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about tools in a little bit that will help you with that as well. But yeah, just know you are hopping around a lot. You do kind of need to keep the thread going. And this is just Robert Jordan's writing style. He writes a map. He writes a map world, and he hops around on it. That is his narrative structure, is to hop around on the map. Like, okay, so we've been talking about what's going over here in the Southwest for a while. Let's go up to the Northeast and see what's going on there. And he takes his cast of characters and just spreads them through the map. And so then you're everything's kind of happening simultaneously, but you're getting, and because this is a world where they don't have internet or telephones, like they don't always know what the other person is doing. So that comes into the story structure a little bit too, is like you as the reader know what's going on, but the characters don't necessarily know what is happening on other areas of the map.
So for the storming area, where would you say that rated in enjoyment?
This was my favorite part of the story.
Okay.
I mean, until the end. I mean, the end is my favorite. But like, as far as like just the reading through of the series, I was having a great time in the storming phase because I felt like all of this like chaos and destruction was, I could feel like it was leading to something. So, and it was like tense. It was tense to read, which I love that. And that's what keeps me hooked, is like, oh gosh, how is this ever going to resolve? Like, what is going on? So yeah, I really enjoyed this phase. So then we move into book 8, and this is the norming phase. Okay. The norming phase is where in the Wheel of Time, basically Robert Jordan had built out this world. He developed these characters. He'd broken everything down, but he wasn't really ready to resolve everything yet. So we have some perils and quests that more so just are the characters existing in the world, and it's like the deep breath before the end. And it tends to just slow way down in terms of like that tension just kind of dissolved for me. I no longer felt gripped by this like urgency. It was like, oh, I guess we have some time here to just kind of like bounce around to characters who are like, they're doing things, the end is coming, but it's just kind of like, but it's not here yet, so let's do some stuff. It's not everyone's favorite. I think that readers who really just love the characters and the world and want to hang out in it love this part. I think that the readers who are more action oriented and meta plot driven and really wanted to get where we were going feel like it slows way down right here. And it almost feels like Robert Jordan is insecure about knowing how he wants to land this plane.
Oh, no.
So I think it just depends what kind of reader you are. I did this portion of the series on audiobook, and I had a lot of trust and faith built up at that point. I was committed. I really wanted to get to the Brandon Sanderson book. So I just kind of locked in and did this part of the series. Is it my favorite? No, not at all. Do I think parts of it are very long and boring? Yes. But I don't know that every reader will feel that way.
So what are the titles of those 3 books?
Okay, so the norming phase is book 8, The Path of Daggers, book 9, Winter's Heart, book 10, Crossroads of Twilight, and what I would also lump in book 11, The Knife of Dreams with this. So this is actually 4 books of the norming phase. Now,
but you say you would clump that in, but maybe other people have said that 11 actually really hit for them.
Yes. And I'm not saying these books don't hit. I'm just saying I would put them in the norming phase. So there is this like among the fandom, among readers, people would call books 8, 9, and 10 the slog, where everything really slows down.
Okay.
And so they would never lump book 11 in with the slog. And I would agree with that. I think that book 11 is more a setup for the end, and the tension is back. The grip is back. Okay. There's a lot of payoff for what has happened in books 8, 9, and 10. But still, in terms of my structure, I would not call 11 a performing book. It is still very much like this norming phase. And I just think book 11 is really satisfying because you do these kind of side quests in 8, 9, and 10, and they're like getting wrapped up in 11.
Oh, we love a wrap up. Okay, and you're such a finisher. You've already read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. So I think me and many people who follow your reading journey were so happy when you finally hit the Brandon books.
Oh my gosh.
Because you just already have a relationship with him as an author.
Yes. And I love how Brandon Sanderson does pay off. So it's so exciting that he got the opportunity to literally just write payoff books for this series.
And he did that because Robert Jordan passed, but before he passed, they had already powwowed, and Robert Jordan had the notes, or had they not powwowed? Did he ask Brandon Sanderson to finish the series, or did like the fans pick him up? What happened?
My understanding is that they did not meet. Brandon Sanderson was a fan of the series and was an author already on Tor's roster, and Tor also publishes The Wheel of Time.
Okay.
So, and then Robert Jordan's wife was his editor and was familiar with Tor's, obviously. So I believe what happened is that Robert Jordan passed away, and I think Brandon had written a piece potentially about the series at some point. And then
I could totally see him
I think that Robert Jordan's wife was just in talks with Tor. She and Robert had talked about someone else finishing the series. They had decided that should happen. And so he did have notes already prepared. And so it was just about her picking somebody, or Tor picking somebody. And so they chose Brandon. And he said yes. And so a lot of the decisions that were made did have to like get past Robert Jordan's wife in order to like who died at the end, like different things or changes that Brandon wanted to make, or things he wanted to add because there weren't notes about it. Like they had to be approved by her.
No pressure. Like this is already like, I guess it was saying online that like this series is second only to Lord of the Rings in like fandom size and like diehard fans. So I feel like that is massive pressure for Brandon. But like you said, he has some skills
Yes.
when it comes to conclusions and the Sanderlanche, where he can just bring all the threads together and give you this like satisfying ending.
Exactly.
So this is the last section.
Yes.
Category. What do you call it?
This is the performing phase
Performing.
where like you've done all the groundwork and now it can just go. There's very little hindering at this point. And so this would be like your Sanderlanche, your payoff, that kind of thing. So in The Wheel of Time, those books are book 12, The Gathering Storm, book 13, Towers of Midnight, and book 14, A Memory of Light. And originally Robert Jordan planned for what those 3 books are to just be 1 book, but Brandon expanded them to 3 books.
He loves writing long books,
Yes.
doesn't he? He's not afraid.
There is also a book called New Spring, which is a prequel book. It chronologically takes place before the events of Eye of the World, the first book, but so that's chronologically, but it was in publication order written after book 10, Crossroads of Twilight. So Robert Jordan did also write that book.
Okay.
Just to be honest, I skipped that one, guys. I was in that norming phase and I was just getting through it and wanting very much to get to the performing phase. So I just was like, I'm sure there's some juice here. And I have friends who have read it and really enjoyed it. But I just decided, you know what? I don't think I have to read this to get to the end. So I didn't. I skipped it.
No judgment here. No judgment here. Okay, so talk about this phase.
So the performing phase is going to be, for those who make it that far, I mean, it absolutely delivers. It's my highest rated books of the series. There's so much good, not just payoff, but I think there's the best character moments are in the last 3 books for me personally, because I think our characters have gotten to their place of highest maturity and highest competence, and they actually have the power within the world now to do what they need to do. They've, negotiated and politicked their way into these positions of power and decision making where they can actually make a difference. And just like on the timeline, this is the point in the world where the Dark One holds the most sway over the continent. And so it's now dire, it's urgent, it's us or him. We have to do this. There is no more avoiding it. And the whole continent is at war. And so it's just like the highest stakes. It's the greatest moments of impact. It's a lot of fruition of just everything that has happened. And the characters just like really sing and really shine. And I think the fact that they're all just in the greatest danger and they've all basically decided they're willing to sacrifice their lives. There is just no choice at this point. Like, they're either going to die defeated or they're going to die fighting or they might win, it's those kind of stakes. So it just is so gripping at that point. You just fly through it.
I'm trying to remember where I saw this, but for a lot of people who like somehow got stuck in the mud of the slog or the norming phase, to hear from Maddie or people who have finished the series just how epic that ending is.
Yeah.
I think it can make slower parts or maybe just not as like gripping parts of a series just go by better, knowing like I'm going to get paid back for this later. Like I'm making an investment right now, but it's going to pay off for me. And this was like the most exciting thing for me to see as your sister was you put in all of this work with this series and you weren't really rating any of them over a 4 until books by Brandon.
Yeah. And I rated The Gathering Storm 5 stars. It's my second favorite Brandon Sanderson book of all time.
Did you hear that? Maddie has read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. Her second favorite Brandon Sanderson book ever. If that doesn't sell people on a series, I don't know what will. But I do think that you have to have a certain level of endurance. Like as a reader, you can't really be a sprinter to be obsessed with this series.
I agree.
You kind of have to be like a book marathon person.
Yeah.
That you kind of love, that there's like the startup and the enthusiasm going into something new. And then there's going to be parts where it's fun and exciting and there's lots to see on your run. But then there's going to be times where you're like, I am in pain and I actually just want to like roll over in the grass. But then if you get through it, the cheers and the excitement and everything coming together, I think it's an emotional roller coaster. But some people as readers, I think they really thrive in that. And The Wheel of Time is top tier for a reason. So I do love that Maddie is a very smart person, but she also needed resources to go through this journey.
Yes.
Because it's not just easy to remember every location on a map and every single character's arc. And you take a little break and pick up a standalone and then you're jumping back in.
Yeah.
So how about for the people, we'll put them in the notes as well. But what were the top used resources that you found?
Okay, so there is an app you can get in the App Store called the Wheel of Time Compendium. And yes, we will link it. This is such a helpful resource because you just go into the app. It's a very straightforward, simple app, and you just choose which book you're currently reading. So let's say you're reading book 4, The Shadow Rising. You would click that, and that will help the app know not to give you any character spoilers beyond book 4.
Oh
so
my gosh.
You click into book 4. I'm reading The Shadow Rising, and because there are so many named characters in the Wheel of Time, let's say you're reading a part about taking place in the White Tower, and there are a couple of Aes Sedai women speaking to one another, and they're all named, but you cannot for the life of you remember, like, who was that Aes Sedai person? Like, have I read about that in books 1, 2, or 3? So you can just look up that Aes Sedai's name, and you pull up the name, and it will tell you like everything we know about that character up to book 4.
Oh my gosh. I want this for every series ever in the history
It's
of forever.
very helpful because there are so many named characters in the Wheel of Time, and it's just, if you're reading other things at the same time or you're not reading it particularly quickly, I just think it's very easy to forget like those side characters. So yeah, that was super helpful for characters. And then the other tool that I love is called wheeloftimelines.com, and it is literally just a map on a web page, but again, on the side you can filter by which book you're on. So again, let's say you're on book 7, A Crown of Swords. You would choose that, and then it would go through from Eye of the World, like from book 1, it would go through the major action sequences of the series up to book 8 for you, but visually. So you'll see on the map, like, this is where Perrin and Mat and Egwene were in book 2, and you'll see that, like, and it'll say, and then they traveled to this area, and that part of the map will highlight for you. So it's kind of like having a really helpful reference. And I would say, especially if you are doing any of these books on audiobook where you can't flip back in your physical book to the map, that is such a helpful companion to have, like, just up on your phone or your laptop to just see, okay, like, where are they moving in the world? Because Robert Jordan really utilizes his full map,
which you either love or you hate.
Right.
Like, I know for some people that feels like, why are we adding extra work to my reading? But if you're like Maddie, honestly, that's actually going to make a book more enjoyable for you. Like, give me a great map. Make sure we're using and utilizing the whole map.
Yeah.
And the fact that people have made these resources, what a labor of love.
Yeah. This fandom is so dedicated and so creative. And I mean, these are just the ones that helped me. I think there are so many resources. Another thing that I really found useful was utilizing Daniel Green's YouTube channel. He has a playlist where he did a recap of every single book. And so if I had a break between a couple books and I had read some things in between, right before I would pick up the next book, I would go back to his recap of the book previous. And they're I think the longest one is like 20 minutes. They're usually about 10 to 12 minutes. And he just kind of covers the major action points that happened in each book so that you can remember. It's just nice to have that refresher.
Okay. I need to see what other series he has read and done this for, because holy helpfulness.
I think he also has some helpful videos on his channel just about the world and about the magic system and those kind of things. If you find yourself kind of just wanting to nerd out on the world building aspects. So yeah, Daniel Green is a huge Wheel of Time fan, and he has a lot of resources on his YouTube channel.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of how to bite it off, I will just say I wanted to give a little note about the audiobooks. And the actress, Rosamund Pike, who plays Moiraine on the TV show, is slowly re-recording the audiobooks. I think she's up to book 4 or 5 right now. So I really enjoyed her narration of the audiobooks in the early books.
Okay.
Michael Kramer and Kate Redding have done a dual narration of all of the books, and I will say it is not my favorite. If the cheesiness is a factor for you, as much as it's a little bit more of a challenge, I would encourage you to physically read, only because I in my personal opinion, I think Michael Kramer and Kate Redding's narration kind of ups the cheesiness, especially of the female characters.
Okay.
So it's just something to keep in mind. It's a trade-off. If you want to go through it a little bit faster and have the convenience of audio and you can put up with the cheese, then do that. But if you really want to be able to read it with a little bit more earnestness and try to give the characters a little bit more maturity in your own imagination, then I would physically read it. That's just a little note.
Okay. I want to hear, because I'm like on the fence. Okay. I'm like, in the next 30 years, when I choose to pick up the Wheel of Time, I just want to know my like quote trigger warnings ahead of time. But I don't think this book is so much trigger warnings as much as they're crash out warnings. Like, what things about this book are going to make me want to crash out because they're just like so bad or so annoying. So why don't you tell us the things, just set us up for success by setting great expectations.
Okay.
What things are kind of annoying, as we call it. And then we'll be positive. We'll end on a high note, and we can talk about the things that like make this so epic and who is it for and what things will you fall in love with. But first, crash out session.
Okay, sure. A lot of these actually, like, they can be really frustrating when you're reading it. And honestly, I think some of them just become inside jokes within the fandom. So it's like, you just kind of have to choose your own adventure with it. It can either really frustrate you, or you can just like choose to be like, oh, this is just like silly inside jokes. But one of the main things is that Rand, the male main character, is extremely guilt-ridden about women being in danger. And on one hand, that's very chivalrous. And on the other, like, sometimes it's taken to this degree that it really feels like Robert Jordan just had a hang up about this and was kind of like putting himself into the book. And so it can read very sexist sometimes if you're a female reader, that is just like, women are so weak and they need protected, and somehow their lives are more precious than a man's because they shouldn't be dying. And it just really falls tone deaf in a story like this, where it's like, everyone is literally going to die anyway, man, woman, child. Like, we're fighting a force that does not discriminate. So if a woman wants to stand up and utilize her power or her role in the world to protect the people she loves, she has just as much a right as any man. And so sometimes that just feels weird.
Do you have an example of one, like a scenario?
So many. There's
in
so
14
many
books, you can think of one.
Rand just kind of does it constantly. And it's in his inner monologue, which I am not a huge fan of inner monologue anyways, but he'll just be like, I'm just sitting here feeling guilty. And he'll just name the list of every single woman who has died under his protection. And
but is he like naming men?
I think he does sometimes in later books, but at first it's like he just pines over like women who have lost their lives.
Yeah, I wonder. So when I look at pictures of Robert Jordan, he's giving Johnny Cash for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's the hat. It's the all black look. And like, I almost wonder if just it's a sign of the times and like, I don't know, his upbringing, but I'm like, what if he was just in a time where like he felt like he couldn't protect the women he loved?
Yes,
and
I do
he's
wonder.
just like projecting that into his book. You know, it's very vulnerable as an author to discuss things and bring things up. And there's no way that doesn't come from a part of your subconscious.
Right.
There's no way.
I will say, because I buddy read this with several friends, we had lengthy discussions around, I think it was around book 4, Shadow Rising, where we were just like, I think it might have actually been book 5, but we were just like, okay, Robert Jordan is showing his hand a little too much about how awkward he felt with women and how obsessed he was with women.
That's funny.
Like, and also we were just like, where was his wife? Because we know she's his editor. Like, how did this get past her?
She just like let him express himself. Maybe she's a let them person.
Maybe. I mean, like, it's very cringy. This is another thing that's very cringy for me in the series. Weirdly, in every romantic entanglement in the Wheel of Time, the woman initiates, instigates, flirts, does everything. Like, there is no male chivalry in terms of romance. Like, there's no sense of a man ever pursuing a woman. The men are always like rejecting the women for their protection. Like, or I just won't pursue her because, you know, then she'll have to watch me die or something.
Maddie, how many chili peppers does this series have?
0.
Okay, that checks out.
Yeah, 0.
So
I mean,
not
there
really
is
hot. It's not really romantic.
It's off page. It's off. You wouldn't want it on page, Kristen. Not if Robert Jordan
Okay,
was
yeah,
writing
I
it.
guess
No
you're not
way.
really selling me as him as a romance, but we know what we're getting with this series, and it is not a romance, so that's
Yes.
fine. That's neither here nor there.
And I would say it just plays extremely, extremely juvenile. All of the romance in the entire series feels like pubescent teenagers trying to figure out the dynamics with the opposite sex, and it's like sitting on each other's laps and
You said there was lots of talking of breasts, and we're like, okay, Robert Jordan, we get it. You like teats.
yes,
We get it.
I think he was a boobs man because literally it's even just things
I'm a
where
boobs
it's
man
like,
too. It's fine.
it's just things where it's like she folded she crossed her arms because she was upset as she was giving this dialogue, but instead of saying she crossed her arms, he's like she crossed her arms beneath her breasts.
I wonder how many times breasts was mentioned.
Oh, we should Google it. It would
that
be
would
funny.
be really funny.
But yes, and he also spends a lot of time talking about clothes. So if you don't like clothes being described, possibly this is not going to be the series
It'll give
for
you the ick.
It's just a lot of clothing being described at all times.
Bosoms and clothing. Actually, he kind of seems like my kind of guy.
Kristen.
I just can't believe, like, I don't know that checks out. Wait,
So some of the inside jokes of the series are like Nynaeve tugs her braid. Okay. And so I actually did a little search to
just
find
like
out
a little.
exactly how many times he tells us that she tugged on her braid. It's 60 times in the series. And that is
For real?
intensely overshadowed by how many times Matt says blood and bloody ashes. That is 767 times in the series.
I'm sorry. Say the number again. How many?
767 times.
Wait, bloody ashes. What does that mean? Like, how could there be blood? It's moisture. If it's ashes, it's been in the fire, isn't it? Like,
I don't know. It's just how he curses, Kristen. He's just like
bloody-
blood and bloody ashes.
he says them together. Blood and bloody ashes.
Yes.
What?
I'm
I'm gonna start using it.
You just have to laugh.
I'm gonna pick that up. It feels very original.
Yes, there's just things about Robert
What?
Jordan's writing style that don't particularly work for me, but because I enjoy the story, the world, the characters so much, it's just like, well, I just put up with some of it, and it does just sort of become like a joke. It's just like, oh, okay, all right.
Would you recommend a buddy read situation?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, if you're going to take this on, which, I mean, you didn't actively buddy read it with our brother until the end because he was taking like years to read this series. This
Correct.
is our older brother, C. Ray.
Yeah.
He's in one of our episodes. He's great. But he was reading it for a long time. But then you guys got to like kind of do the conclusion together.
Yes.
So having people to discuss. And then obviously, like you're saying, sometimes clown on the things that are just like, why again?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this?
Like I would text C. Ray and be like, I'm starting book 11. He's like, oh, smooth your skirts and tug your braid.
Oh my gosh, Maddie, we have to start using that.
Smooth your skirts.
Smooth your skirts and tug
your
that
braids.
tug on your braid. Why? So like a nervous tick?
Yes, she does it when she's like upset, doesn't know what to do with her hands. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know what? To each his own. Okay. So I don't feel like we talked shit, but we talked a little bit of shit. So why don't you actually for reals tell us why you were willing to give the time that it takes to read these books? What was the motivation? And at the end, what made you feel like I'm excited to recommend this to people, the right people?
Yeah, I think that it does just feel like a fantasy canon story in our fantasy zeitgeist. It just felt like such a foundational story, and I think that the fans are so dedicated, and it's such a rich fandom and a large fandom that there's just a part of it that I wanted to have reference. And so I was going to do it and enjoy it regardless of like what it ended up being as a star rating, just because for me it just felt like foundational fantasy education. And I was fascinated just by the drama of it that Robert had written all the way up to book 11, and then like willingly passed this baton off because he wanted the fans to get a conclusion to his story. And just the fact that Brandon picked it up, and Brandon is one of my more favorite authors. So I don't know. There's a lot of it about it that drew me to it. But I would say my favorite aspects of the story are the magic system and the world. And I think it's because it's a very thematically interesting magic system, because the Wheel of Time magic system is separated male to female. And so while males and females can both channel, they channel a different portion of the power and they do it differently. And so gender roles, while I don't know that Robert Jordan is as tactful as I would like in exploring them, I think just the fact that it's in there gives a lot of fodder for readers to discuss gender roles and just not even roles, but like gender presentation and the way that creativity works differently between men and women and how powerful they are when they're combined, because that's a huge theme of the story, is just how beautiful a combination or a wholeness of the magic can be. And I think, I don't know, I just think today as we're discussing gender and we're discussing gender fluidity and we're discussing like the wholeness of different energies and how the combinations of people and teams of people and partnerings of people can become such a powerful thing, I think it's represented well in a magic system. I just think it's really cool how he did that. And I love the world because it is vast enough in scope that you do get a lot of political interaction in the series. So could there have been more? Yes. But what we did get, I really, really liked. And I understand why it lends itself well to a role-playing game, well to a TV show. Like that kind of like political engagement is rich within the world.
Maddie, because you are such a theme-focused reader, what were the themes in this book that really, I don't know, tickled your fancy, made you feel something, you feel like it's important?
I will say it took a long time for the themes to drop.
Oh, like how long? How many books?
I felt like they really came to fruition in the final 3 books, but then retroactively I appreciated the earlier books because I was like, oh, I see it's in there, but it just didn't really like land until the end. I think one of the major themes of the story is balance and the simultaneity of good and evil. And so I think we're always in these epics where it's like, let's vanquish the enemy, let's take down evil. And I think this book really explores that. I think all the books, the series explores that the existence of evil is this like, it's what means good exists. And I think this idea of the wheel and the idea that things are reincarnated and things come back into the wheel of time over and over and over again is this idea that we get multiple chances and that we would choose multiple chances because we can always do better and that we're growing towards something even more beautiful. And it's not about having a destination. So like, you know, and well, you don't know, Kristen, but like in the Stormlight Archive, a major theme of Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive is journey before destination. And I think even before he wrote that, you know, Robert Jordan writing The Wheel of Time was really playing with that idea as well of like this journey of life that we go on is just like this constant daily simultaneous dance that we have as people seeking to do good in a world where there is evil. And we will always be in that dance. And it's like a joy and an opportunity to be able to do that. So I think that's a huge theme. Okay. I mentioned the gender dynamics and the nature of power. I think one of the main things that arises out of that is this idea of creativity. And this is one of the reasons why I love this magic system so much, is that since males and females can channel the power, it's like they're always creating new weaves. That's what they call them. Like they can weave the power together to make things happen. And characters will literally create new weaves. And it's like it's only limited by your imagination.
Oh.
And I mean, it is somewhat limited by your skill as well and your ability, how much power you can channel. But it's like even people who are weaker in the power, like they can't channel as much, they'll have like proclivity towards an area of interest and they'll be able to create things that help their fellow man. And it's like, depending on how great their need is and how sharp their focus and, you know, who supports them, because you could be a weak channeler, but if you can link with a more powerful channeler, you can still make these incredible things happen.
Right.
So I really love that theme because I feel like that's how our power works in real life. It's like you're really only limited by your own imagination and creativity.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
Wheel of Time, go off.
Go off, right? Like some of it's really fun. I'm trying to tell you guys, like, it's good.
No, and I think if you know that the plot is going to be long, maybe you can handle the slower bits. But if there's not a good magic system and the world is not going to support it and you're not going to have these really cool themes, like you can't fake that. Like that has to be there. That's kind of like the bread and butter that's going to make something feel savory and amazing at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because we were like born and raised on Lord of the Rings, I'm curious for difficulty to comprehend and lore and world, how would you say that they compare the two? Obviously very different.
I think I infinitely prefer Tolkien's writing style, but I also prefer that Tolkien was able to tell his story in 1,000 pages versus Robert Jordan, who took way more than that.
Took his time.
Yeah.
That's his right.
But I do think for accessibility, probably Eye of the World is probably more accessible than Fellowship of the Ring.
For real.
Yeah. Just for like a brand new modern reader. Yeah.
Well, hopefully people can watch this video and either now know what they're getting themselves into if they start, just that, you know, you're going to get some variety. There's going to be some high highs and some low lows. But also, if you're like me and you're on the fence.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about who it's for.
Yeah. Like I decided just to kind of start watching the show, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because I just was like, let me just see kind of what the vibes are.
Yeah.
Because it is a big commitment and I don't know when I'm going to get into it. So who is the person that you would sell this to as a recommendation?
Okay. I think if you have a teen in your life who loves to read and loves to read fantasy, I think that The Wheel of Time is actually kind of perfect for adolescents, like 14 to 20.
Oh.
And I would say people who love to read, but maybe don't need to consume a huge quantity because this is going to consume their life for a while. So if they want to be reading a lot of variety or they like to read a bunch of one-offs, this is not going to be for them. But if you have somebody who in their middle grade, early teen years, like loved Harry Potter or is interested in Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing, I think The Wheel of Time is pretty great for like 16 to 20. And just sink your teeth into it and let it become an all-consuming thing. I think for people starting out in reading, I think Wheel of Time is great because you don't have a lot to compare it to, and it is foundational. So it's like you're kind of reading it before everything else was written. You read that, if that makes sense. I think it's difficult for people now to go back to Wheel of Time like I did, like in your 30s, when you've already read a lot of other things that came after it, because it just does have weaknesses that more modern fantasy does not have. In my opinion. But I also think you could put it at the end. So if you've already read a lot of your modern fantasy and you're just like, you know what, why not? Let's go back to the beginning, which is, I think, kind of more like where I feel like I was, that it's just kind of like, I don't have a super intense fantasy series TBR that I'm eager to get to. I've read a lot of what I wanted to read. And so it's like, okay, I can just take my time and go through this. And yes, I am comparing it to other things, but I can appreciate it in the context of when it was written. And it is just fun to have that like foundational thing. I think the hardest time to read The Wheel of Time, which is where Kristen is when you have a lot on your TBR and you haven't even read a lot of the more modern fantasy series you want to read. And I think you would just get bogged down trying to bite off Wheel of Time in the middle of that. I think you will constantly be getting FOMO and looking at other things and wanting to be reading other things. And you'll be asking yourself, like, why am I spending all this time in this series that's not really a 5-star series for me? I think it falls better in the beginning or the end of your reading journey. In terms of the big fantasy series, that would be my opinion.
I actually had no idea that you think that this would be good for like almost like a YA audience for people who don't have a lot to compare it to. But I've heard similar feedback for some other, I would say, foundational series that people are like, it was so good, it changed my life. But you ask them when they read it and what they had read before it.
Yep.
And it all of a sudden clicks.
Yep.
You don't play the comparing game so much. You're able to really sink in because you're not at the point where you're wanting to read a bazillion things at once. You're more in a season where you read a book at a time.
Yep.
You take a month or 2 weeks for a book.
Yep.
No rush. Oh, I love that.
And I think that Wheel of Time already for me feels nostalgic. That's so weird to say, but like
Whoa.
now that it's behind me, I love stumbling across YouTube videos about it or a podcast episode about it. I love to just nerd out with fans. I love to like look back at art. Like now that I'm not worried about spoilers or anything, like it is fun to be in the know, I have to say. Like it's very fun to be in the know, and I look back fondly on my time reading it. But I think that would just be enhanced if it was one of the earlier things that you read.
This totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I hope that this spoiler-free episode, The Wheel of Time Explained, was helpful for you. It has been an actual joy to watch Maddie be on this journey and be there for the high highs and the low lows, kind of on the outside. But it's also just great to understand that like good books will be good forever. So whether you pick this up today after watching this episode, or you decide to re-pick it up because you got stuck in the slog, or you're planning to read it in the future, sounds to me like it is a solid canon fantasy if you are like us and you just really do love epic fantasy. And hey guys, last month we were in the top 10 for podcasts on Apple Music in the book category.
You.
It's crazy. We're so happy about it, and we want that to like keep being our normal. So if you can rate and review or follow us wherever you are listening or watching this podcast, please do. You can like it. You can leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys, and we want to keep making great bookish content for you. So enjoy the rest of your day. Happy reading. And if you pick up Wheel of Time, please let us know.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I bet we feel good together, and I can just get